You are listening to Packers Talk Radio Network.
PackersTalk.com.
Eddie Lacy, Mike Daniels, Gilbert Brown, Don Barclay, Micah Hyde, your Green Bay Packers, yesterday's legends and today's superstars. From corporate or nonprofit events to private parties, add some spice, hire a Packers player from Mayfield Sports Marketing. For details, just go to PackersTalk.com and click on Player Appearances.
Are you looking for some signed Packer memorabilia?
Look no further than Waukesha Sports Card.
If a Green Bay Packer can sign it, Waukesha Sports Cards has it.
Check our website for upcoming Packer player and legend signings.
Go to WaukeshaSportsCards.com.
Welcome to Titletown Sound.
Babo? Who's Babo? Oh, Bobbo! That's me. Present. I'm here. Sorry, my secretary didn't write that down right.
I don't think I'd know Spencer Havener if I tripped over it.
You're the worst. You're the worst ever.
Jeremy, you love my sense of humor, right?
Yeah, it's my favorite ever.
I think Jermichael Finley could be back next year, Jeremy.
Do you?
I also think Omarius Hines could be back next year.
I hate you so much. I hate you.
We chuck it down the field, we run fast, and we score touchdowns. I have nothing more to add. That's it.
Welcome once again to Titletown Sound, edition number 54, the Larry McCarron episode.
Nice.
That means absolutely nothing, but hey, Larry McCarron's awesome. Yeah, mention him every opportunity we get. And on this here episode 54, we're going to be looking ahead to the upcoming game against the San Diego Chargers. We'll learn why Bobbo is thinking about vanilla right now. And we're going to play a rousing game of Where in the World is Kristofco?
Ooh.
Which might not actually happen, but
I think
I know Chris.
I bet he's in Pennsylvania, which is where he lives.
That's a good point and a big spoiler for later, so maybe we won't play the game now. Good job. We just lost 10 minutes of the show.
I'm just here to ruin things.
Yeah, that's usually my job, but Jeremy's taking over that role because, well, we're switching roles up a little bit since Chris isn't here, so you're going to hear more of me. My apologies.
Hey, speaking of Larry McCarron, I think the other thing that you absolutely have to mention as much as possible is that crazy finger. Holy crap. Have you noticed his broken finger?
I can't say that I have looked at Larry McCarron's fingers recently, no.
Well, I will send you a picture while you're talking, and then maybe we'll get a reaction on the show.
Sounds good.
That'll be great.
We'll come back to that. We'll talk about that for 10 minutes later instead of Chris not being here.
All right.
All of this stuff, including that vanilla thing I talked about later. But first, let's talk about the Packers' recent win over the St. Louis Rams. And all in all, it's a win. It's a win over a very good Rams team. I think that's a safe thing to say. And yet, we Packer fans, let's be honest, we talk about this a fair amount on the show, I think. We Packer fans tend to get a little too particular, maybe. We get a little too upset about things we don't need to get upset about.
Yep.
And I'm going to let Jeremy talk further on that point.
Yeah, I mean, it's like after every game, we tend to see Packer fans kind of getting ready to jump off the ledge on something, and I don't really understand it. The Packers are winning right now, and they're winning an awful lot. They're 5-0, and the defense is really good, and but the offense isn't working quite right. The wide receivers aren't playing as well as they need to. Name something stupid, and it's probably being complained about.
We should have gotten 16 yards on that play instead of 15 and a half.
Right. Yeah, exactly. They gave up 150 yards to Todd Gurley this past weekend, and Packer fans are being Packer fans. And so I felt like we needed to address that, which, by the way, Bobbo, check your Facebook. I did send that picture. Anyways, Packer fans are freaking out because it's kind of what we do, which I don't really understand. And I say we, but I shouldn't because I don't really freak out quite as much. But I just want to say, everybody, let's just settle down. We're 5-0. They beat the Rams. Yeah, it wasn't pretty, but those are the kind of wins that championship teams have. That's the stuff that they grit out and figure out and win. And besides, think of it this way. The winning that we're experiencing right now, we should be enjoying every moment we can because Eventually, it's all going to be gone. There's going to be a time with no Aaron Rodgers. What are we going to do then? There's going to be so much complaining. Twitter will be unusable. Being a Packer fan will be embarrassing. It'll get crazy. So let's all just kind of settle down and, enjoy winning, enjoy the Packer season. That sounds like a good time.
Don't tell me. Still complaining about us complaining is still complaining. Rah, rah, rah.
You sound like Homestar Runner, which probably like nobody knows who Homestar Runner is. So you're.
I believe you're talking about Strong Bad.
No. You sound like Homestar Runner. Strong Bad had a different voice. You are wrong.
Spencer Hayden. That's what I have to say.
Once again, you are wrong. Once again, second podcast in a row, you were wrong about something. You need to start owning it.
Number one, not going to happen. Number two, I think the main reason people like to complain is this basic psychological need to find something to bicker about, so that maybe a little bit so that we feel better, we feel more in control of something that we have no control over, basically.
Yeah. And
because really, we go out to the Packer games, those of us who can actually get tickets, and we have our little bit of influence making noise. That's about the best we can do.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong.
Go ahead.
Packer fans have their, it's their right to complain as much as they want. I'm just saying there's coming a time where it's not going to be quite as enjoyable, and we need to, hold on to that and cherish it for a while. The Packers, they look great on Sunday in a lot of ways. And yes, there were some ways where it was a poor game. And, to dive into that a little harder than just good and bad and they were awesome, Aaron Rodgers didn't look quite right. The wide receivers weren't getting open. There's some big question marks there as to what's happening. I actually wrote an article about it. You can go to the website and read it, titletownsoundoff.com. It's called Solving the Wide Receiver Struggles. This receiving core is not playing to the standard that Packer fans are used to, and that is the biggest complaint this week. There's a lot of injuries the Packers are dealing with, and they've been dealing with it since Jordy Nelson went out. This injury issue started with Jordy Nelson because without Nelson, there's no deep threat, and it's changing the way that defenses look when they play against the Packers offense. Safeties aren't playing quite as deep. They're closing in on underneath passes much quicker. And that shows with Randall Cobb's yards per catch. They're down to 11.3. I think it's normally like 14 something, and 14 is kind of his average, and it's been for a few years now, but it's down to 11. And it has to do with the fact that the safeties aren't playing all that deep. They're closing in quickly. Defenses are playing this offense a lot different, and the Packers are in need of fantastic quarterback play to win football games. However, they just played against St. Louis, who has one of the best defensive lines in the league and one of the best pass rushes in the league. They put pressure on Rodgers all day long. He made some errant throws, and it was a little messy. The running game's not where it needs to be because Eddie Lacy's ankle is injured. He's not... I guarantee you Eddie Lacy is not able to cut the way that he's supposed to or is used to. My brother-in-law texted me on Sunday and said, "What's wrong with Eddie Lacy? His vision looks horrible." It's not vision. He might see a hole. He might not be able to cut to it. His ankle, with being as heavy as Eddie Lacy is and dealing with an ankle injury, it's going to be awfully hard to cut to a hole, where you have to put all your pressure on that injured ankle. He's freaking huge. And, that's awfully hard to work through.
Yeah, and I think that kind of plays into my other point that part of the reason that we complain, I think with any good conspiracy theory, not that I'm going to get into conspiracy theories here, but with any good conspiracy theory, there's always a grain of truth. And I think the reason that we fans a little bit tend to get so nitpicky and complain is because there are things about the team that can still be improved upon. And that's going to be the case with pretty much every NFL team ever. There's always a little bit of room to improve. Even when I look back to the Packers thrashing the Vikings 592-7, I think was the score last year, I forget. But it was some game where the Packers offense was just lighting it up and they were just hitting on all cylinders. I don't know that they could improve much on a day like that, but most weeks there is room to improve. There's always something to look at and say somebody missed an assignment here, somebody got beat there. And I think fans feed off that a little bit too much, perhaps, but it's naturally going to happen around the water cooler on Monday.
Yeah, and you have to come to the water cooler with some conversation, and so the easiest thing to point out is all the broken stuff. I think what's hardest for Packer fans right now is to watch a team that is normally consistently fantastic on offense and terrible on defense. They finally get their defense playing to the level that Packer fans have been waiting on for a long time, and the offense isn't up to par. And I think Packer fans are just saying, like, hey, when are we going to see the full thing? Like, when are we going to see the whole shebang? The offense is clicking and killing everybody, and the defense is shutting everyone down. Everybody's waiting on that to happen. But there's good news, everybody. I have fantastic news for all of you. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's bound to happen this season because a lot of things are about to change with the offense. Devontae Adams is going to come back probably after the bye, and his ankle is going to be healthy. That's a guy that they desperately need right now. Andrew Corliss will be back, and yes, he's more of a blocking tight end, but I'm telling you, Richard Rodgers is the only one really seeing the field right now. I think Kennard Backman had like 8 snaps last week, so that's a lot of time for Richard Rodgers to be on the field. He's going to get some time to rest. He's going to be more healthy and more rested as the game goes along. Randall Cobb, he's dealing with his AC joint, and he's not been able to break tackles, or maybe not break tackles because that's not kind of not what he does. But what he does do is fearlessly fights for extra yards, and he hasn't really been doing that this year as much. And I think it's because he's favoring that injury. That's going to get better. When Eddie Lacy gets healthier, that's going to get better. The offensive line has not all been on the field at the same time. That's going to change. There's just so many things that are going to bounce back the other direction. Also, you got to remember there are young guys on this team developing and learning how to play within the system, and I think they're ahead of schedule. Ty Montgomery is looking really good right now. Last year, Devontae Adams didn't really get active till like week 5, so we should be very excited about guys like Ty Montgomery, and the Packers are eventually going to hit something over the top with Ty Montgomery, and it's going to start to change. It's going to start to change the way this offense looks, or the way defenses are playing the offense. So much can change by the end of this season. There will be a time, unless there's somebody who gets hurt on the defense. Clay Matthews, knock on wood. I'm literally going to knock on wood because that makes me nervous. Okay. If a key name on the defense gets injured and the defense starts to go to crap, then I'm disappointed. But the offense, all the pieces are still there. It's all still there. So it's all going to turn around, and at some point this season, we're going to see the whole thing all together, and it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be like a piece of art. So be patient. The Packers are winning, and they're getting through this time where they're dealing with a lot of crazy, stupid injuries, but they're also getting lucky. They have big-name guys getting hurt, and then it's not that big of a deal. Like TJ Lang's hurt. Things came back positively on his test, so negative. His test came back negative, and he's fine. BJ Raji's test came back negative. He's fine. Brian Bulaga came back healthy. He's fine. Those are huge key pieces that the Packers would be in a really bad spot if they lost those guys, but they didn't. So much good is going to come from this team later on in the season, and as of right now, they're winning football games regardless of where they're at.
Yeah, and you mentioned Montgomery in particular. One point we wanted to talk about this week is rookies having an impact very early on here. Randall and Rollins in the secondary have been outstanding. We haven't really seen Hundley at all because he's backing up Aaron Rodgers, so we don't need to. But
yeah, we're not going to see
the preseason.
Yeah, thank God we're not going to see Brett Hundley. And I like Brett Hundley, but that's not going to happen, and thank the Lord.
Yes, and Ripkowski is, getting in there, and he's doing things. And we haven't seen much of Jake Ryan yet, and we hope to see more of him as the season goes on. But just looking at those three names, Randall, Rollins, and Montgomery, big impact now, and then hopefully we see another rookie or two step up over the next month or so. But it's really impressive to see these guys getting into their systems and understanding it so well, so quickly. And it really, I think, it's such a big reason that the defense is stepping up. It's kind of obvious to say, I think, that the secondary is better because we got good players in the secondary now, and that was our problem last year. But, yeah, we've got not just guys in the secondary stepping up, but guys all over stepping up every week. Every week, different guys are stepping up and doing something. Jaron Elliott was doing it, a couple weeks ago, and Nick Perry's been doing it. Now, he's hurt, unfortunately, but it seems like the defense is really benefiting from not having that one guy do everything.
Yeah, and you could say, like, it's not just young guys on the team. It's definitely the depth on the team is a big part of it. We could talk about the rookies. Demarius Randall has looked fantastic this season. He's always in position to make a play. Quentin Rollins gets on the field against the Rams this week, and look what he did. It's pretty fantastic to see these young guys already stepping up. So on both sides of the ball now, you got rookies playing football at a high level. Can they do it consistently? I don't know. I think they can. I think they're on the right path, and they can. The Packers changed their off-season program this year. They focus more on veterans in training camp. They used to focus more on rookies. And I don't know how that would possibly help the rookies, but it might have, because this rookie group is all, the guys that are seeing the field right now, they're all looking really good. Jake Ryan's story is a little bit rough because he's hurt, so maybe he'd have more chances to see the field right now, and he's not even active. He wasn't active this week. I think he was a healthy scratch, but maybe the Packers are just playing it safe with him. I was actually surprised when they brought Joe Thomas back. I thought Jake Ryan would be getting more snaps ahead of Joe Thomas, but very quickly Thomas was on the field. And I think that's probably more because somewhere in that game is where Ryan got hurt. But Thomas has been really good for a guy who was in Dallas, and the Packers brought him back. He's been really good for the defense. Dayton Jones, as far as depth goes, he's starting to step it up this year. They just have things falling into place that they haven't had before that we've all been waiting on, and the rookies are a big part of that. You don't normally draft a rookie class and instantly have 3 rookies playing on your team and making an impact. As far as Ripkowski goes, he's been great on special teams, and not only that, Jeff Janis, everyone's favorite wide receiver, he's been really good on special teams. Now, Janis, I don't think he's going to really be productive in the passing game. I don't know if he ever will. Packer fans really, really want to see Janis. Yes. I don't think it's going to happen. I feel like it's not going to happen because every time we see him on the field, he's being redirected to where he should be versus where he is. There's usually a moment of frustration on number 12's face, and if that's what's happening, you're not going to see the football field. So don't look for Jeff Janis anytime soon. I wrote it in my article. My midseason bold prediction is that Jared Abbrederis will become active in this offense before Jeff Janis, and that's because the kid has smarts and Aaron Rodgers likes him. Those 2 things are important. I don't know. It's either that Janis doesn't have the smarts to play or he doesn't have the work ethic to play. But for some reason, he doesn't have what it takes to play in this offense right now.
Those of us in the Jeff Janis Appreciation Society can send your angry tweets to @TitletownSound or to @TTSO_Jeremy.
That's right.
And feel free to use foul language.
I will put them in the same place I put the John Kuhn love/Jeremy hate tweets, which, don't matter to me in any way. I don't know. Jeff Janis is, he's shown that he's got that deep threat ability, but there's so much more to the game than just, he runs fast. He's really good in Madden. I was listening to the radio this week. Guy calls in, he literally starts his call with, I made money playing Madden, and then went into his football analysis. Oh, dear. And started talking about how Jeff Janis is so fast in Madden. They got to get him on the field. So, okay, some random dude out in L.A. looked at what Jeff Janis has done for the Packers so far, guessed on his statistics and what he could be in the NFL, put a number in a computer, and you're saying that's reality. What? Yep. I think that's the problem with Jeff Janis fans in general. They're like, well, he's great in Madden. I've been using him for the deep threat, and it's awesome. No, it's not awesome. You're playing a video game, and none of it is real. Jeff Janis, he's got a lot of growing to do if he wants to see time on the offense, and maybe it can happen by the end of the season. I want to be very clear. Jeff Janis could possibly see the field at some point and help this offense. However, he hasn't done it yet, and I don't know if it's going to happen soon. I don't think so.
Sure. All right. Just hating on Jeff Janis all the more. That's all right.
That's what I got.
Keep digging that grave.
I will.
We'd better change subjects here before we get a rash of Twitter hate from us just Jeff Janis lovers. And let's play Pick 3. Where, again, for those of you joining us for the first time, perhaps, hey, welcome. Good for you for listening. And basically the premise is that if the Packers beat the Rams, which, if we could take players off of the Rams roster and add them to the Packers at no charge, who would we want? And, Jeremy, I know you've been thinking very carefully about the 3 Rams you would want. Do you think you have them picked out?
Well, to be fully honest, I haven't been thinking that hard. But I will have my picks in, 2 seconds. So, let's see.
I can go first if you like.
Go for it. You go for it.
All right. I am going to go with, and I'm not going to say this is a particular order. This is just the way I wrote it out. Wide receiver Tavon Austin. I think adding a weapon like that to the receiving core would be pretty slick. And he really, he still had a pretty good game, but I think he was struggling a little bit with Sam Shields because I don't think he's faced a corner as fast as Shields before. Somebody who could actually kind of keep up with him. But I think Austin's starting to show what he can do. I'm going to go Aaron Donald, defensive tackle. He's one of the best in the game right now, and you can't have enough big dudes like that. So if he could play the middle of a 3-4 at all, I don't know how you work that out with Raji and Guyan, but whatever, we'd figure it out. And I'm going to say my third guy, I'm going to go defensive end Robert Quinn. That guy has been a really good pass rusher, and I was thinking about going linebacker there, but I like to get those big dudes up front. I feel like we could use one of those more than we could use another linebacker, I guess. And I don't know. I'm rethinking that as I say it, I guess. But
yep,
those are going to be my three.
I'm going to say your analysis there on inside linebacker was wrong, but I think that you also recognize that. So there you go. My picks are going to be Tavon Austin as well. And then I'm actually going to go James Laurinaitis. So I am going to go inside linebacker. Now, as far as Aaron Donald goes, he is one of the best in the league, but he's got more of that Mike Daniels build. He's 6'1", so he's a little shorter, and he's 285, so he's kind of lighter. He's a little bit lighter than Mike Daniels. But still a guy I would take. Still a guy I would put in there. I would put him in the same spot as Mike Daniels and see if he can perform. Now, then you're rotating Mike Daniels and Aaron Donald, and is that realistic? I don't know. But those are my guys. There you go.
All right. Time to move on to Twitter questions, and we don't really have a lot of Twitter questions. We're doing this on a Tuesday, which is earlier than we normally do it, so I think we threw off the Twitterverse a little bit this week. But we did get a Twitter question from our buddy Chris at TTSO_Chris, who's usually here with us to tell us how insane we are. But he sent a question in: would you rather be podcasting or working right now like I am? And I'm going to say I would rather be podcasting because he's working. I think he said he's working like a 27-hour day today or something like that.
Yeah, I think 27 or 28. Yeah. I'm going to say it doesn't really matter because podcasting with you, Bobbo, is just as much work as my job. So there you go.
True that. He also asked yesterday, I think I tripped over Spencer Havener, but this guy was wearing 53. Did I?
No, he absolutely did not. That was a lie made up by the devil, and Photoshop helped him out. So, no.
I kid, I joke, but no, it was not Spencer Havener. It was Strong Bad wearing a 53 jersey with Havener's name on it.
Oh, my gosh.
Anyways, let's move on to the coming week's game. Packers facing the San Diego Chargers, who are coming into Lambeau with a record of 2-3. Let's start on the offensive side of the ball. Phillip Rivers, still the quarterback for the Chargers. Backfield featuring former Badger Melvin Gordon and Danny Woodhead, who's just a constant pain in the neck everywhere he goes, catching balls out of the backfield, and been doing a lot of that this season. Wide receiver Keenan Allen having a very good year. Stevie Johnson doing okay as well. Antonio Gates is back in there at tight end after being out early part of the season. Ladarius Green has really stepped up in his absence. And so, Jeremy, my question for you, Chargers offense, what are your thoughts?
They're a team that's putting up a lot of yards. They're putting up a ton of yards. I'm not really all that concerned. Maybe I should be, but passing yards, they're at 318. They're second in the league, but really they don't have a running game, so they're pretty one-dimensional. They're 25th in the league against the run. The Packers are going to be able to pin their ears back. Phillip Rivers is not a mobile quarterback, so if the Packers are fully healthy on that front line and they got B.J. Raji, they're going to have a push up front. Guys coming from the sides. Clay Matthews with his hair on fire. Phillip Rivers crapping his pants and throwing interceptions. So I'm not necessarily concerned. I know they're putting up a lot of yards, but that's okay with me. I'm not really concerned about that.
Now, I guess I'm looking at this Chargers offense and thinking that this should be more than it is. And they've evidently just got such issues figuring out their identity as a team.
Mm-hmm.
That seems to be what fans' consensus seems to be, too, is this team in general doesn't really have a solid identity right now.
Yeah.
Another guy, I'm going to throw out this name here, Chris Watt, who I believe is the starting center for the Chargers, apparently has not been doing well lately. And generally, this offensive line hasn't been great, which anybody who drafted Melvin Gordon in fantasy leagues, you probably expected more from him. And he just hasn't been able to produce because the line just can't give him the openings that he needs to be successful. And really, any running back, needs to be successful. So I would say keep an eye on Chris Watt and keep an eye on whether Dom Capers really focuses on the middle part of the offensive line with blitz packages and whatnot. So other than that, I mean, the Chargers could very well fall behind very early in this game.
Yeah,
and
they're
going to have to throw, and that does kind of work with their strength a little bit, so they might be able to hang around a bit. But
no, but like I said, if they're not going to be able to run the football, I don't think they're going to be able to. The Packers have been fantastic against the run, and right now Melvin Gordon is averaging 3.8 yards a carry. Danny Woodhead right behind him at 4.2. It's not anything to write home about. Danny Woodhead's an interesting guy. He's kind of their Randall Cobb, where he's like kind of that gadget guy. They'll put him in the backfield, but they throw to him a lot. He's their second leading receiver. So I'm not concerned about this offense, and maybe I should be more concerned, but the Packers' pass rush has been on point, and their defensive backs have been fantastic, especially last week. Interceptions galore, and we might see a little bit more of that this week. I know I've been predicting a lot of Packer wins and blowouts and craziness, but the Packers are really, really that good right now. And I don't see them losing at home. And I can't see this offense, this San Diego offense coming in against the defense the way it's playing right now and putting up enough points to keep up with the Packers.
All right, spoiler alert for the prediction portion of the show.
You don't know my score, and that's the important part. Just saying.
Yes.
Okay, maybe it's not. Maybe it's not. I lied. I'm a horrible person. I ruined the podcast, everyone. Just turn it off.
He's kidding, of course. We know you turned it off long ago.
Long ago. The podcast has been turned off for quite a while.
Talking about the Chargers defense now. They've been running in the 3-4 defense for quite a while, and I was kicking around a Chargers message board earlier today, as is my wont. I get a kick out of doing that. And fan was asking on one of those boards, is it just me or have the Chargers been running a very vanilla defense? It looks very preseason-ish, like we're not masking coverages, we're not hiding things, we're not, it's very vanilla. And a particular user had the following quote, more like French vanilla, I'm adding the more than part. They said, more like French vanilla, as soon as the ball is snapped, they're looking for places to hide. That's how well their defense is doing right now. A lot of people asking if they've got the right personnel for a 3-4. Manti Te'o right now, leading tackler. Corey Luget apparently doing okay in the middle of the defense, but he's not a dominant force. And as we know, the 3-4 really needs a dominant force at nose tackle to really function well.
Oh boy, do we know that. I mean, all those years watching the Packers without dominant B.J. Raji, watching them with pedestrian B.J. Raji, his split personality, we definitely know that for sure.
Absolutely. And another name that comes up defensively, Brandon Flowers, who really did not play well against Pittsburgh. And part of me is wondering, I was thinking about making this a true-false question for later, but part of me wanted to say, how much is Aaron Rodgers going to attack Brandon Flowers if he's that old and slow and bad and awful at football? I actually kind of think maybe that the Chargers know that they're going to go after Flowers, so maybe Rodgers is going to attack everybody else more than Flowers because he'll be able to do it because the defense is straining. Maybe I'm overthinking that, but really this Chargers defense does not seem to be presenting any serious risk to the Packers offense. And I just can't help but look at this and think that the Packers are going to score 40-some points.
I would like to say the Packers will score 40-some points. Maybe it'll be a little more subdued than that. But this defense really doesn't they don't really have anything on here that scares me. Maybe Melvin Ingram, but he hasn't done much since he's been in the league, and I think he's dealt with some injury stuff. He was a guy that coming out, everybody with a 3-4 defense was just buzzing about this kid.
Yes.
And I mean, maybe there's something there we just haven't seen yet. I mean, the thing is with an AFC team, it's not like we don't pay attention, but it's a little harder to pay attention to AFC teams when you're so wrapped up in what the Packers got going on in the NFC. So Melvin Ingram, I haven't seen much. I haven't read much. I'm not concerned about him. He's probably their primary pass rusher, and okay is what I have to say. I don't know what to say about this except for blah. They still have Eric Weddle, and yes, he's a tiny little midget man playing safety, but he does tend to make plays, and that's a guy maybe I'd be concerned about, especially with the wide receivers struggling the way they are. Aaron Rodgers has had to throw his wide receivers open all season long. Maybe they get lucky with a pick six and they somehow keep the game sloppy, as I've been saying for weeks. That's kind of the key to beating the Packers. Keep it sloppy, run the football, which San Diego can't do. But maybe they get lucky. Keep it sloppy, stay in the game. But they're going to have to get lucky. This defense does not impress me at all, and neither does their offense.
Yeah, could potentially be an ugly one. I believe the Chargers, and I should have looked this up while you were talking, I believe they're actually 14th in the power rankings on ESPN right now. So take that for what it's worth. That seems kind of ridiculously high to me, just looking at this roster, and considering the fact that they're 2 and 3 right now.
Well, I mean, power rankings to me are fairly unimportant and sometimes very stupid. So they're middle of the road. They're just above middle of the road. The Packers are nowhere near middle of the road in this league, which to me equals out as a win. Okay, one of the top teams in the league versus middle of the road should equal a win almost every time. So
I wait for the NFL if the Chargers really are as bad as we think they are, and they're 14. And it's a sad state.
It says a lot about the league, because right now when you look at both sides, AFC and NFC, the Packers are far ahead of everybody that's around them. I mean, the Cardinals lost to the Rams 2 weeks ago. And then on the AFC side, you got the Patriots. They're head and shoulders above everybody in the AFC. It's kind of this weird season this year where there's like 2 standout teams, and that's kind of it.
Yeah, a lot of better teams that are kind of having issues here and there. So, but on that note, we can't always have a fantasy season where the Packers are scoring 40 points every week, but
we can.
We can still drink, can't we?
Yeah.
And speaking of fantasies, let's play Fantasy Pick'em. Last week in Fantasy Pick'em, Chris won with the combination of Aaron Rodgers and Tavon Austin. I came in second with Todd Gurley and Randall Cobb. And Jeremy, I'm sorry to say, you took third.
Well,
Eddie Lacy and Nick Foles, who threw 4 interceptions because, as I said right here on this podcast last week, Nick Foles is bad at quarterbacking football. Actually, I think I said he sucks at quarterbacking football.
Regardless of what you said, you were right. And, oops.
Hashtag Bobbo's Book of Truth. On that note, Chris won for the first time this season last week.
Yeah, congratulations, Chris.
Chris, not here.
I'm sure, but he's going to listen to the podcast, and he'll probably have like a mini dance party or something. So,
sure.
Yeah.
Why not? So Jeremy took third, and we had a little chat with Chris earlier. So we got his picks for Fantasy Pick'em. But Jeremy, you had the first overall pick for this week, and your selection was.
Are you wanting me to say it? Because I can't even remember who I picked Aaron Rodgers. Of course I picked Aaron Rodgers. I should remember that. I'm an idiot. There you
go. First pick every week. And see, and generally Aaron Rodgers should be the first pick every week. Although, I will say, just to be argumentative, and, because Packer fans like to complain, right?
Yeah.
That's what we were saying earlier. So, I'm going to complain about that pick. Because the Chargers' offensive weapons are not that great. So you might actually want to go with, like, the one good Chargers offensive player, which they might actually, it depends on the week, I think, but.
No, you don't. You did it wrong. I'm just saying.
Sometimes they could have, like, a really, really good week. I think I faced Danny Woodhead some week, and he had a good week.
Bobbo picked Phillip Rivers, and it was a poor choice, and now you're trying to explain away your bad choices. You're trying to justify the poor choice that you've made, and it won't work.
I'm just making the argument to our audience as to why one might not pick Aaron Rodgers with the number 1 overall pick in this game.
Whoa!
Not because he's not great, but because there's only one draftable player from the other team that's worth taking, and the Packers have multiple.
That's fine. That's totally fine with me. There's no way I'm picking anyone from San Diego before I pick Aaron Rodgers because
this is not a good week to do it.
He's Aaron freaking Rodgers, okay? So no, absolutely not. You pick Phillip Rivers with your first pick.
Because I didn't want you to have the option of taking 2 quarterbacks, and B, I don't know. Just Phillip Rivers will probably get some passing yards and blah.
Because you're Bobbo and you make poor choices. Just own it. Anyways, let's finish up with these picks. What do we got?
Yes, your 3-pick, Chris. Chris got to pick on the turn, so he got to pick his Packer, which was James Jones. He made sure he picked his Packer first, so good for him.
Mm-hmm.
And then he went with Keenan Allen as his other pick. Not a bad pick, actually, a wide receiver. Good receiver.
No, Allen's been good in fantasy this year, other than last week when I really, really needed him to help me in my DraftKings league. Of course, then he's not very good, but he's been okay this season. So, good
I've
pick.
been so bad at fantasy for so long now that I'm pretty sure nobody ever wins fantasy football. Everybody loses by just a little bit.
I think so. Maybe.
I think that's how that works. I don't know. Wow. But anyways, my second pick was Randall Cobb, who I feel like generally doesn't do that well when I pick him, but I think he's due for a good game. And the Chargers defense, kind of blah. So that was my pick. And Jeremy, you remember your last pick, right?
I do remember my last pick. Actually, I lied. I don't remember who it was.
Your final pick was Danny Woodhead.
Oh yeah, that's right. Danny Woodhead. He's second on their running game and second in their passing game or receiving, whatever. Anyways, so that's my pick.
All right, an interesting pick there. Interesting pick over Melvin Gordon, but Woodhead going to be involved in the offense. So
hey, why would I pick Melvin Gordon? He's got 3.8 yards per carry. He's got no touchdowns, and he's not a receiving threat. He's just not. I mean, we do PPR, half-point PPR. I'm not going to pick Melvin Gordon. He's done nothing this season. There's no point in picking him. And watch, he scores like 2 touchdowns this week, and I look like a complete idiot.
Exactly. That's the only reason that's going to happen is just to spite you.
That's usually how that goes.
Everybody's out to get us. Moving on to true false. Last week we had 5 true false questions, and Chris got 4 of them right. So again, well done, Chris, who's not here. So
he's still raging with his mini dance party.
Yeah, all these accolades, and he's not here for any of it. So only one he got wrong was Todd Gurley rushing for at least 100 yards. He went false. I was the only one that said true and got that one right. So pat on the back.
I'm pretty positive I got annihilated in true or false this last week.
I'll be honest, you didn't do well. But the good news is I'm keeping track of these over the course of each week. You're still in second place.
That's because you're terrible. So
yes, I had 3 right. I had 3 right last week, so I actually had a pretty decent week. So I'm closing the gap. I'm in third, but Chris is still out in front, and he is over 500 right now. So we got our work cut out for us. And it's time for True False for this week. You ready, Jeremy?
Yes, I am. I am totally ready.
Alrighty. And by the way, I'm going to be putting these up after we finish recording. These are going to go up on TitletownSoundoff.com's forum. And we want to get your thoughts on these, your opinions. And feel free to tell Jeremy why he's wrong. Okay, True False number 1. Aaron Rodgers throws for more yards than Phillip Rivers. Aaron Rodgers averaging 236.8 yards per game. Phillip Rivers averaging 305.4 yards per game. On the flip side, the Chargers defense is only allowing 218.8 passing yards per game. Of course, they're 2-3, so keep that in mind. Packers are allowing 186.2 yards per game. So again, the true false. Aaron Rodgers throws for more yards than Phillip Rivers.
Okay, Aaron Rodgers will throw for more yards than Phillip Rivers. Not because the Chargers' passing game isn't good or whatever, but the Packers' defense is so good right now. And I don't want to sweat them too hard because I said last week I kind of want to wait a few weeks, but they've strung along 4 really good games. I don't think that's stopping this week, and I don't think Phillip Rivers is really going to be able to throw the ball a lot this week. I think the Packers come away with a couple picks. So, true. Aaron Rodgers will throw more than Phillip Rivers.
I was thinking maybe I'd get to trip you up on this one because I figure Phillip Rivers is going to have to throw the ball a lot.
Yeah.
Because, again, potentially this game could, not saying it will, absolutely, but it could get out of hand early. And the Chargers will need to throw, and they do throw the ball well.
Well, I mean, look at the numbers, though. I mean, what did you say the Packers' defense gives up? It's 100 and something. It's not
186.2 is what I had.
Yeah, 186.2. I think they're in the top 10 in the league in pass defense, and it's not going to be a good week for Phillip Rivers. And he tends to be a quarterback that kind of crumbles under pressure. He's had his moments where he just throws picks. So that's going to happen this week. There you go.
True enough. So I said true as well because I think even if the Packers do get up by a lot early, there's going to be a lot of Aaron Rodgers passing yards, and they'll keep throwing it for a while. So
yeah.
So unfortunately, we agree on that one. Dang it. So hopefully Chris will come in with his true and false on the forum.
Oh, no.
And hopefully he'll say false.
He will. That's not even a question. Chris, I know you're listening, because you listen to every podcast to make sure we don't sound like dum-dums. You're going to do this, because I know you will. Anyways.
Well, if that's his job, he's failing at it miserably.
Yeah, I know. Every week he listens to the podcast, and then he tells me, well, you weren't too stupid, so good job. And that's kind of, where we've been.
Yeah, and I'm talking more this week, so that opinion will change now. But anyway, true false number 2. The Packers defense records at least 5 sacks. They have 20 sacks through 5 games, so they're averaging, if my math is right, 4 sacks per game. So, again, Packers defense records at least 5 sacks against the Chargers. And that offensive line. Now,
with LaTroy Guion kind of starting to work his way back into the defense, he can get comfortable playing football again. And not like he was gone for all that long. He did practice all preseason, blah, 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 blah. But even if B.J. Raji is out, LaTroy Guion can fill in the gap there pretty well. He showed that he could do it at the end of last season. I think that'll still happen this year. So, if they get that pressure up the middle, I'm going to say, yeah, they're going to get that 5 sacks.
Darn you, Jeremy. Darn you, I say, because I also said true. Another one where I was...
Hey,
really,
the numbers are in the favor of true, okay? It's your fault. You need to start picking questions that don't suck, Bobbo.
Hey, I said they average 4 sacks. 5 is more than 4 last time I checked. So.
Ooh, numbers.
Yeah, darn math. Not helping me out here. True false number 3. Melvin Gordon rushes for at least 55 yards. Gordon currently averaging 54 yards on the ground per game. And the Packer defense is allowing about 130 yards rushing total per game. That's everybody combined, not just the top back. So, again, true or false, Jeremy, Melvin Gordon rushes for at least 55 yards.
Now, again, unfortunately, I think this is going to be one we agree on because the Packers... Right. The Packers defense has been good all season against the run. They've had 2 games out of their 5 where they've given up a good chunk of yards. But against some of the top backs in the league, they've been shutting them down. The Chargers' run game has been pretty poor this year. I don't see it happening. Gordon's not been doing a whole lot. I'm going to say false.
Ladies and gentlemen, I don't normally write down my true-false decisions before the podcast. I did this week. And I hate to tell you that I agreed with Jeremy again on this one. I'm never doing this before the podcast again.
Just so you can change them. Just, you got to have that flexibility so you can go against the grain because, you don't want to agree with me.
I think that's part of the reason I suck at this game is I want to counter you guys so much. And it's not true.
Well, let's justify what's happening here because here's the reality of it. Your true or false questions, they're not in favor of San Diego, and San Diego's not a good football team when you compare them to what the Packers have been putting on the field lately. So, of course you're going to pick against San Diego. I mean, that's just kind of the way this has been going. It's the way it's all going to go, and we could just end the podcast now because basically San Diego sucks. The Packers, they're going to win, and that's that. So there you go.
We got two more true falses here. We may have a fight yet.
Oh, okay.
True false number 4. The Chargers defense gets at least 1 interception of Aaron Rodgers.
Ooh.
I'm not backing that up with any stats. I'm just going to leave it at that.
I'm going to say false because Aaron Rodgers throws his picks last week. One of them wasn't even an interception. Look at the freaking play. I don't know how that didn't get turned over. It wasn't an interception. And the first interception was on a tip pass. So not even Rodgers' fault. Well, maybe kind of his fault. You got to know your throwing lanes and if they're open or blah, 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 blah. But the first pick comes on a sloppy tip pass. That sucks. The second one wasn't even an interception. An angry Aaron Rodgers plays really good football. I'm pretty sure he's upset that he threw 2 picks at home last week. I don't think he's going to do it this week.
I said false. Actually, I think that one's a pretty easy one to pick, so I can't really complain about that one. Last true false for this week. True false number 5. Eddie Lacy rushes for at least 85 yards. He is averaging 51.4 yards per game.
Now, this is an interesting question. This is one that kind of brings, a little bit of questioning here because Eddie Lacy's still dealing with his bum ankle. He really could use that bye, which comes next week. Thank the Lord. I want to say true, but I just don't know how much they're going to be handing off to him, especially if they're leading in the game. They're going to use Starks. if they're leading in the game and they're running the ball at the end of the game to just run the clock out, they're going to use more of James Starks than Eddie Lacy. They want to keep Lacy healthy for the end of the season. There's no point in using Eddie Lacy right now if you don't have to. False.
Going with false. I like making you sweat a little bit there, especially on the last true false. I actually said true on this one. I think Lacy, over the course of his brief career, has not gotten off to real hot starts. And as the season goes on, he tends to pick it up a little bit. Ankle, slowing him down a little bit here, granted. But I'm still going to say Eddie Lacy does rush for at least 85 yards, so I'm going to say true.
The only thing that goes in your favor there is the fact that the Packers' passing game is struggling right now. And I don't even know if you can even say they're really, really struggling because it's not been a week in and week out thing. Yes, for the whole season, Aaron Rodgers has had to throw the ball in a way that gets his guys basically open. He's putting it where the defender can't get to it. This week, however, San Diego's probably not going to have much of a pass rush. Rodgers is going to have that opportunity to hit those small windows and get the ball to the receivers. So what's going in your favor is that possibly the passing game is struggling. What's not in your favor is the fact that San Diego's defense isn't anything to write home about. So, man, if they score a couple touchdowns early and they just kind of get ahead and they have a comfortable lead, I just can't see them bringing Lacy out and running the football with him. Not if Starks is playing as well as he has been. And you want to keep Lacy healthy, especially, the bye is next week. You get him. If you don't have to use Eddie Lacy very much in this football game, don't. You get a break next week. Give him even more of a break if you can. And I think the Packers are going to be thinking that way. That's what makes the most logical sense to me. All of my picks tonight, by the way, based on logic. I don't know where that came from because that's not usually what I do, but that's what happened.
Yeah, that'll be your downfall, Jeremy. That will be your downfall.
Yeah, but if I suck, you're gonna suck. You only picked one different from me, so you should be cheering for me. You should be excited because you're the worst at this right now. So
True, but if I do terrible, it means you do terrible too. You're gonna come down with me.
Oh, it's like that. You would rather I come down with you than us both do well.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Oh yeah.
So wait,
you would rather go down on.
You would rather only get that last pick right and have the rest of them wrong just so you can say you beat me.
Sure.
You're such a butthole.
That, and I want revenge because you sent me that picture of Larry McCarron's finger. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Larry, we love you, by the way.
That pinky, though.
Time for predictions. San Diego Chargers at the Green Bay Packers. San Diego entering with 2 wins and 3 losses, fresh off of a loss against Pittsburgh. Green Bay, of course, is Green Bay. They're doing very well. And Jeremy, what is your official prediction and score for this game?
I've said a lot of things about San Diego and how fantastic they are as a football team. So this is really hard. The Packers are going to win. I don't know how big of a margin they're going to win by. I'm going to put the Packers at 28, and I'll say San Diego, no touchdowns, okay? Again, no touchdowns. So, I'll put San Diego at 9.
9 points. I think sometimes a cure for an offense that's feeling a little bit off, and in fairness to Aaron Rodgers too, he was lights out to start the season, and I think he wasn't his A-plus self against St. Louis, and the Rams defense certainly wasn't helping him.
Nope.
But I think a good cure for what ails you on offense is sometimes facing a defense that is weak against your strengths. So, on that note, I'm going to say the Packers beat the San Diego Chargers by a score of 42-14.
Ooh. Going with an absolute stomping of the San Diego Chargers.
Yes.
All right.
Pretty much.
I'm okay with that. I'm good with that.
We disagreed. We kind of disagreed.
Well, and that's fine, but I feel like the Packers' bend don't break defense is working big time right now. They may be giving up yards here and there in big chunks, but they're keeping teams out of the end zone. That's going to continue this week. I don't think San Diego scores a touchdown. I think it's another one of those awesome defensive weeks. So look forward to that. And yeah.
All right. I'm just saying, I think Jeff Janis could be playing safety by the end of the game.
Yeah, there you go, Packer fans. You'll finally get to see Jeff Janis on the football field. Woo!
Yay!
All right. So, Bobbo, you got anything else for the podcast? Anything else you want to bring to the table?
Anything else that I want to bring to the table? Of course, people should follow us on Twitter. We should mention that quickly.
Yes, we should.
Titletown, at Titletown Sound on the Twitter if you want to hit us up at Titletown Sound Off at the website's Twitter. If you want to hit us at specific Twitter addresses,
Stop.
you had to hate on my Twitter speech.
I did. Because according to Mike McCarthy, it's the tweeter. So there you go.
Oh, Mike, you're so lovable right now. Anyway, at TTSO_Chris for the invisible Chris Kristofco. And you're at TTSO_Jeremy, correct?
Yes, I am.
That's good. And I'm at That's Our Bobbo, or That's Sour Bobbo, as I'm getting to be right now. And also, I would like to remind people, of course, to pet their cat.
All right.
Because that's what I do every week. And, of course, go out to Toys R Us right now and look for the Strong Bad action figure wearing a Spencer Havener jersey, which, if you've listened to the podcast the last 2 weeks, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
So, inside jokes. That's good for a show. All right. So, I just want to direct everyone's attention to TitletownSoundoff.com, of course, because that's our website and this is our podcast. However, we have a couple new writers. James, I'm going to say his name. It's a fun name. James Korsmo. So, Korsmo, like Cosmo Kramer. James Korsmo wrote a little article about the defense. Depending on the defense, go check that out. As I said before, I have an article up about the wide receivers. We have our weekly articles coming all the time. They're just coming and coming and coming. So pay attention to that. And yeah, this is, what was this, 54? We're getting, we're getting old. This podcast is getting old. So thank you for listening. For those of you who have listened from the beginning, thank you so much. Bobbo and I on a little bit of a throwback night without Chris. As we've said before, this is the way we started. This is the way the podcast started, and then we added Chris, and it got much better. Yay. Thank you for listening to Titletown Sound. Thank you so much for reading our stuff. Hey, thank you for commenting on our articles. That is good to see. And you know what? The Twitter interaction has been fantastic. If you're not following us on Game Day, Chris is running the Twitter account on Game Day, and he absolutely crushes it. Pay attention to the Twitter account on Game Day. I guarantee you will absolutely be entertained, even if you're only looking during commercials, which a lot of Packer fans do, and I understand that. Pay attention to at Titletown Sound during the game. And again, thanks for listening to the podcast. We'll bring you guys another podcast next week. Hopefully, all three of us will be here. Life is a little crazy sometimes. Chris, we miss you. We found you. You're in Pennsylvania. Everyone knows now. They're going to come to your house. Sorry if you die. And, with that being said, thank you for listening to the podcast. We'll talk to you guys next week.
Are you looking for some signed Packer memorabilia?
Look no further than Waukesha Sports Card.
If a Green Bay Packer can sign it, Waukesha Sports Cards has it.
Check our website for upcoming Packer player and legend signings.
Go to WaukeshaSportsCards.com.
Eddie Lacy, Mike Daniels, Gilbert Brown, Don Barclay, Micah Hyde, your Green Bay Packers, yesterday's legends and today's superstars. From corporate or nonprofit events to private parties, add some spice, hire a Packers player from Mayfield Sports Marketing. For details, just go to PackersTalk.com and click on Player Appearances.